We have got yet another insane warping unit, and this is going to be my breakdown of legendary Male Shez's banner and my wind legendary tier list. So he is a red dagger infantry unit, and he's a wind legendary boosting up your defense, and he's also a pair up legendary. So here this Ectonier is a paid actor because this is the story Ectonier without his divine strength and without attack defense excel. So yeah, sometimes they just want to skew the matchups in the favor of the new unit, just trying to gas them up, but they are pretty misleading at times. So he has got dual sword as his dagger, and this gives him minus on special cooldown, and this is an 8 might dual phase brave weapon, so he can function even in the enemy phase as a vantage unit now that we've got Brave Bernie with her paranoia status, and he inflicts penalty on all stats of the foes in 3 rows or 3 columns centered on him, and this is basically a rain debuff with the range of a Crux skill, and this is going to be depending on 4 plus the number of combat instances in that current turn multiplied by 4. So the max you can get is minus 12 debuffs on all of the stats of the enemies, and this is actually pretty good support for arena usage. Now this is going to be including the combat instances where Shez does not participate in that combat, so it doesn't need to be Shez necessarily, and battles on player phase and on enemy phase are counted separately, and it does not include the current combat itself. So the rain debuff is also pretty helpful for summoner duels depending on the map layout, and this can actually throw you off sometimes because the amount of debuffs that you can get can snowball really quickly, and it definitely helps with some of the bulky units in something like arena where you will have to enemy phase units, and then at sort of combat if his HP is at or above 25%, then he gets extra stats in the combat, and this can go up to 14, and this depends on the number of foes in 3 rows or 3 columns centered on him, multiplied by 3 and then added with 5. And this does have the 30% damage reduction against the first attacks, including the brave hits of the enemy, and then he has got the full tempo effect in this weapon. So not only he can get the null guard effect, but he also neutralizes any kind of special charging effects of the enemies, and nowadays we do have quite a bit of that. So this does help him with the brave weapon that he has got, and this can definitely help him nuke harder with lethality and also stuff like Flash Barrow, which can give you special charges. He does come with Ruptured Sky, and he's the first non-Byleth unit to have Ruptured Sky as a special, so this is a decent special and can help you in the far savior matchup against Valentine Myr, especially for summoner duels and also for arena. But lethality is a really solid option, which again he can make full use out of because of the tempo effect that he has got in his weapon. And then he has got attack speed finish 4, which is a pretty decent skill because he's going to be warping quite a lot, so the extra true damage can help you, and also the healing, but there are definitely better skills that he could run on him. And then he has got his exclusive skill in Shadow Slide. Now Shadow Slide is extremely fun to use in 3 hopes and can make things quick with how you can warp all over the map, and that is essentially the same case in FEH. And he's able to have global 2-space warping near any kind of ally that has entered in combat in that current turn. So it's not completely as insane as Emblem Celica, because you will need an ally to enter a combat, but again that's not the hardest thing to do with a lot of the bulky player phase unit that we have got, like Brave Felix for example. So it can enable the warping, and in something like Aether Raid's defense, again it's not really all that hard to have another unit engage first. So enabling the global warping with the pass built in is really strong, and it is a similar case to Emblem Celica where none of your warp blocking like Gatekeeper or Valentine Myr warp bubble is going to be stopping this kind of warping. So yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of this kind of warping because only a handful of units can have the warp blocking, and I mean you've got the High Dragon Wall skill, but still you've got just the pass built into these kinds of units that just ignore any kind of warp blocking even in the future. So it does make them pretty strong, but also kind of oppressive at times in certain situations. And he also has the aerial maneuvers warping, so even if an ally has not entered the combat and he's not able to have the full global warping, at least he's going to be having the aerial maneuvers warping. So that is something you'll have to respect in arena, because he could just warp and nuke your unit, and then that is the end of your arena run. And if he's within 3 spaces of an ally, then he can inflict -5 debuff on foes' attack speed and defense, and he also gets true damage based on 20% of his speed. So this is good for nuking because he does have a brave weapon, and it's not the highest might, so this kind of true damage is really helpful, and this is not going to be getting applied to the AoE specials, which again you're not going to be running on Shez. And then he also has the 50% damage reduction piercing, akin to physical no follow-up or a tempo 4 skill. So this is again helpful in nuking because we just have so much damage reduction, and this could be stacked up with damage reduction status from Legendary Camilla, for example, but that is going to be taking the seasons to a line. And you also get the 7 flat damage reduction on foes' first attacks, including the brave hits. So this is really interesting to me because they've been trying to make these kinds of player phase units that can take a hit. And obviously this is aimed towards Emblem Ike, who can hit really hard. So the 7 flat damage reduction does help you with the Slotsy skill that he has got, and also with the 30% damage reduction that he has got in his weapon. So he can be decently bulky, but not too bulky. So it can definitely catch you off guard. And then he has got Pulse Smog, which is the tier 4 version of Pulse Smoke. And this skill definitely does not disappoint with its tier 4 version. So this inflicts -3 speed and defense debuff on the foe, and also has the guard effect in the combat. And after the combat, you can inflict the -7 attack debuff, the guard status, and its area gets increased to 3 spaces of the target. So that is actually really good. And this also has the unconditional scowl effect built in if the unit initiates combat. Again, it is aimed towards Emblem Ike, but it's not like Emblem Ike is completely, helpless against this kind of scowl effect, because he has got Creation Pulse now in his arsenal, and there are a couple of units that can give you the special jumping effect like Harmonic Nefni. So Emblem Ike can always be run with that and counteract this kind of scowl. Now this scowl is definitely really strong because this is not a resistance check, this is unconditional scowl. And this is going to be working only if the foe has got a damaging special. So this is not going to be working against the defensive specials, and Emblem Ike has got Great Ether as an offensive special. So again, it is going to be trying to target that, but a well-supported Ike can pretty much get past any of his counters at this point. And Pulse Smog is basically an anti-special skill, which is pretty much what you'll want out of the tier 4 version of Pulse Smoke. So this is a really good skill on a lot of units actually, but keep in mind that to get the scowl effect, you need to initiate combat. It's not something you're able to get defensively in the enemy phase. So be very careful before inheriting this skill on like a fully enemy phase unit, because you're not going to be getting the scowl effect. So Shez has got some new skills, and the warping is just unstoppable with the pass that he's able to get. And he has got the global warping, which again, can be really annoying to face, but really fun if you're the one using him. And Ectinier is going to be dying here, but like he's missing the things. And then they showcase another combat where he's able to have the global warping, and then he's able to nuke Ninja Zelgia. So definitely pretty annoying to face in Aether Raid's defense. Good thing is that he is not a blessable unit, so hopefully we don't really face him too much. Legendary Male Shez does not have the effective damage like Female Shez, but even now, like, Female Shez has a really hard time getting the effective damage because units are just really fast, and Male Shez gets the other things, and the warping with the pass built in is really good. But again, you'll have to enter in the combat, so you need to use units like Emblem Celica for something like Aether Raid's defense. Brave Felix and Brave Alphonse are really bulky, so they can also be used. And of course, Emblem Ike, the best Omni tank in the game. So that shouldn't be a surprise. And the way he's able to circumvent the warp blocking is going to be making him age better. And his support is also pretty subtle, but really helpful with its range of a crack skill. And he's going to be useful in pretty much most of the game modes. As an arena unit, he is going to be quite solid there. And in summer duels, he can also be a good far safe delete button, as is the case with a lot of range nukes. And even in Aether Raid's offense, he could be used, but he doesn't really have any kind of extraction, but still really solid nuking. And for his special, lethality is going to be working as a better option in many of the scenarios. For Slotty, attack speed finish is fine, but I think that Flash Barrow is a lot better for player facing because you're able to get these special charges and you run Time Pulse 4 on him with lethality, and it becomes a 2 cooldown special that you trigger on your Brave attack. And if you run Emblem Marth, then you can just run some other slotsy skill. So Flash Barrow is absolutely amazing on him, and if you're trying to Vantage with him in the enemy phase, then attack speed unity can work out because you don't only want the healing of the finish kill. So with Brave Bernie, he could be used, and it can be pretty fun with his dual phase Brave effect. And then for the slotsy, like I said, Time Pulse 4 is really good with Flash Barrow. He doesn't really have null follow up, so Infantry null follow 4 can help you so that he can quad attack better. But the Orders effect is a bit redundant with the warping that he already has got. Attack speed ideal is going to be one of his main sacred seals. Hardy Bearing is also helpful in the Emblemite matchup with Pulse Smog. And if you're not going to be getting any kind of null follow-up support, then it could be run as a sacred seal. So he's quite solid despite the misleading matchup with Ecthenir that they showed. He can be really fun even in the enemy phase, and he can trigger lethality in his Vantage or Paranoia range with Time Pulse 4, and he of course nukes and warps all over the place. And now let's take a look at my Wind Legendary tier list. So in tier 1, I'm going to be having Legendary Male Shez because he is going to be having that warping, and his support is also helpful for Arena, and he does score pretty well. So if you're trying to use him as a merge project, then it can work out in the long term. And then in the tier 1, I would also have Legendary Alincia. A lot of people did underestimate her when she came out, and her nuking has fallen off a bit because we have got a lot of really good tanks, and she does nothing to Emblem Ike, like absolutely 0 damage times 4, but still she can run no quarter, and she has got the Omni Guidance, so incredibly useful for arena usage and can definitely be useful in summoner duels as well. And these two are basically the best Wind Legendary units that we have got. And tier 2, I've got Legendary Female Corin, who got an amazing Weapon Refine and Remix, and then we got Lagoo's Friend as a slot B skill, and it works perfectly with her Negating Fang too, because it's a defensive special, and it doesn't have a special cooldown requirement with Lagoo's Friend. So she can tank much better, and even in Arena, we've got High Dragon Wall as a tech option. So if you want to prevent the warping of, at least the range units that are not Shez, then you could try and run her there, and it's a higher scoring option than Lagoo's Friend, so it does help you with the scoring as well. And she's still really solid, like for the scoring option for a unit that's present on these remix banners, where you can try and spark and over the months build up the merges. And she's not going to be that far off compared to the max scoring units that we have got in the Wind Legendary category. So incredibly solid unit, amazing tanking with a lot of flat damage reduction. And then we've got Legendary Yuri, so his combat has also fallen off, but still he does have the utility of foul play, and Kanto can also help him, but he does have his shortcomings, and getting the pulse effects for him can be a bit annoying, but at least we have got stuff like the net now, so that can be hopefully a bit easier. And then we've got Legendary Veronica, who has fallen off really hard because she's a pure combat unit, and it's gonna be a really hard task for her to double a lot of the modern tanks nowadays, so it doesn't really help much. And then we've got Null Counter Disrupt Echo, so even her conditional fire speed effect doesn't really do much, so it's really sad. And the fact that she's a cavalry unit doesn't help her in Arena, where we've got a lot of trench maps and they're generally not that friendly towards the Cavs. And starting tier 3 off, I've got Legendary Eliwood. So bonus doubler is not really as good anymore because of the ploy skill that we have got, and he can still provide the support, so that is at least decent. And he also has decent combat. It's not really all that bad for an older legendary unit. And then we've got Legendary Sigurd, and honestly I like the support of Legendary Eliwood way more, even though we have got the ploy skill and everything, because with Legendary Sigurd you'll have to engage in combat with him first to get the extra movement. And again, Cav unfriendly maps can be pretty annoying, but still he can pack a punch, so definitely not to be underestimated. And he is in the holo forms, so maybe you can get some expensive skills. And then we've got Legendary Mirror, so she does have pretty underwhelming combat, even though she has got the Warp Bubble, but again, that doesn't really help you against Emblem Celica or Legendary Male Shez here. So unfortunately she doesn't have the role compression of Valentine Mirror with how she's able to function as a Far Savior. And like in Arena, you probably want to run her with High Dragon Wall for getting the max scoring, and maybe run her with Soaring Echo because if you run her with her preferred slots skill, then you're not able to have any kind of warping, and High Dragon Wall is kind of needed if you want to get the most scoring out of her. So not the best unit, but still the Warp Bubble is helpful for stopping the blocking and the annoying Emblem Celica users that we've got in Arena. So that is at least stopped by Legendary Mir. But again, if you have a competent dragon like Legendary Female Korin or even newer Female Kana, then you could run High Dragon Wall on them and they can have better combat than Legendary Mir while still having the warp blocking, at least against the range units. So that is always an option. And in tier 4, I've got Legendary Lucina. So she is getting hard carried by her Future Vision 2, but still it's not as good as her father's to Change Fate. And also she doesn't have the combat of Legendary Chrom. Legendary Chrom can still hit really hard, and she's going to be having a tough time getting the kills, but at least she's got the positional assist to help her stand out in tier 4. And then we've got Legendary Female Byleth. She should be getting a remix under Fine in September of 2024, so just next month. So hopefully she can get better, because right now she does have a bit of an identity crisis where she doesn't really stand out with the warping. And even though she has got the drive tempo, and she's unique with that, its range is not as good as you like to be. So hopefully it can become like 3 rows and 3 columns, just like Legendary Male Byleth. That would be definitely really helpful. And then we've got Legendary Micaiah, who also really struggles to find a role with her weapon, which is so awkwardly designed. But at least she's able to have stuff like Magical on Follow-Up or Tempo 4 or Resonance for the damage reduction piercing. And she's going to be getting a Weapon Refinement remix in January of 2025. So it's a bit far off, but still, things can get better for her. But same cannot be said for the tier 5 legendary units, and Gantra is going to be at least first in tier 5 because she is a range cavalry unit, and at max investment you could maybe try and use a ploy skill and stack up resistance. So that is something she could do, and at least she debuffs a bit better, and she's a range cavalry unit. And Reed doesn't really have that going for him because he is a sword cavalier. There are a bunch of better red units in the wind legendaries, and also much better red cavalry units that you could try and build up. So he doesn't really stand out much. And then finally we've got Legendary Lyn, who mainly has got the feud effect in her weapon, and that's all about it. So unfortunately these units are really hard to use, and they also don't really score all that much for arena use case. So let me know what you think about my wind legendary tier list. We've got a bunch of them, like 14 of them at this point, and a lot of them are going to be having a hard time, but hopefully some of them can get better with the Refine and Remix. So overall this banner gives you amazing value in the red color because we've got Legendary Male Shez, and then we've got Emblem Ike, the best Omni tank in the game and easily one of the best units in the game. And Fallen Lumera is also really good because she is blessable, so she could be used in the Azure season, and she can provide you the Divine Vein Stone terrain, which does help in the matchups where Emblem Ike is going to be facing the AoE enemies, and you can have a lot of resilience against the AoE specials with Breath of Life 4 on Ike and also with the Stone terrain of Lumera. So she just works out really well with him, and she does have the Arcane Feldstone, which is an amazing Dragon Stone for a lot of dragon units, and she also has the Scout skill. And green is the second best color because Nurgle is hard carrying it, and Nurgle is easily one of the best units in the game, and he might be a contender for the top 3 or at least like top 5 units in the game. So Insane Nuking Essence Drain is so good in a metagame where we have got so many visible status effects, and Nurgle does not slack when it comes to his own combat, and he can do a lot of damage even to Emblem Ike. So green does have the value. Then we have got Legendary Male Robin and Legendary Female Lear, and both of them have kind of fallen off a bit, but still they are useful as arena scoring options. But unfortunately Legendary Female Lear doesn't really have a lot of the omni tanking tools that Legendary Male Lear has got, so she is a bit lacking. Colorless does have some situationally useful and decent tech options because we do have Arlen, who can provide you the unhindered movement status, so that can be helpful in Summer Duels S. And Yukimura does provide you with the passive damage reduction piercing, so if you have a lot of old units who lack them, it can be helpful, and it can be stacked up multiplicatively with physical non follow-up or a tempo 4 skill, so it does help. And blue color has got a lot of beast units. Freya is the best one because even though we have got Hathran as the Freyr of this year, Freyr is still Freyr because of his cleansing, so he's still really good, but you don't really need many copies of him. You know, a one-off copy is fine for Aetherwaite's defense. Ratatosker has the anti-warping, but she has to act first to get it, and Nirthus is going to be struggling a bit as a pure combat mythic unit. The next month we could have a new seasonal banner, or if they want to continue the theme, we could maybe have an Ice Tribe banner, and Divine Vein Ice is introduced with Brave Female Robin, so maybe more units can have that. And Legendary Female Byleth and E3 are going to be having their remix banners, and we should definitely be getting a new rearmed unit next month with the new Heroes banner. And next month, according to the rotation, we should be getting a new emblem hero unless they want to release Dress Valgar as a mythic unit and break the pattern, which they can always do. So next month, this is the lineup of the Emblem Hero banner. Emblem Martha is going to be there, Emblem Celica is going to be there, and she's likely going to be color sharing with the new Blue Emblem Hero. So that is a very high value banner. And Attune Micaiah is also going to be there, so that is another potentially top 5, top 10 unit in the game. So this banner can provide you a lot of value, especially compared to this month's banner. But if you want to get Emblem Ike, then this can certainly be a good red pool where you could summon on. So hopefully this can help you plan your summons, and I want to thank all of my YouTube members for the constant support, and you can click the link on your screen right now to check out my breakdown of the Choose Your Legends 8 banner, and make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell, because YouTube sub boxes are about as functional as warp blocking against the paths of Legendary Male Shez. So with that, I'll see you guys next time. Thank you so much for watching and have a great day.